This little Ford may not look like much, but it is the second best-selling crossover in South Africa for 2020. Hi guys, Eric here and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be having a look at a 2017 Ford EcoSport 1.5 Ambiente. South Africans adore this car and I am on a mission to find out why. While doing some research about the history of the EcoSport, I was surprised to find that there was a first generation that started production in 2003. It was designed by Ford Brazil Development Center and just like the current generation was based on the Ford Fiesta. It was designed to be an affordable crossover for the masses in Brazil as well as some other Latin American countries and sold very well, being one of the best-selling Fords in Brazil, Mexico, Venezuela and Argentina. It was available with 3 4-cylinder petrol engines, a 1-liter 8-valve that was supercharged, a 1.6 8-valve with 82 kilowatts and a 2-liter with 107 kilowatts. There was also one diesel option, a 1.4-liter with 50 kilowatts. The 2-liter petrol model could be fitted with 4-wheel drive that can electrically engage the rear axle when the front wheels lose grip, or the driver can engage the rear axle manually on the dash. This generation received a facelift in 2007, which included a new front end, new rear bumpers, and a better built interior. The second generation was introduced in 2012 in Brazil. Developed by the same people who developed the first generation, it was to be exported internationally. It was produced in Brazil, India, Romania, Thailand, China, Russia, and Vietnam. Us South Africans get the EcoSports that were produced in India, as does Australia and Europe. Currently, only 2 factories continue to build the EcoSport. The plant in India, which is why it is still on sale today, and the plant in Romania. With the pre-facelift, we had a choice of 3 engines. A naturally aspirated 1.5-liter, like the one we have here, producing 82 kilowatts and 140 Nm of torque. A 1.5-liter turbo diesel with 73 kilowatts and 250 Nm, and Ford's award-winning 1-liter turbocharged EcoBoost engine with a healthy 92 kilowatts and 170 Nm of torque. In 2017, Ford gave the EcoSport a facelift, which included a new front end as well as quite a few changes to the interior, but I will leave that for when I get the chance to review one. For now, we have this 1.5-liter Ambiente spec. I really like how the EcoSport looks. It treads the line perfectly between being small but looking capable and masculine. It reminds me of a Jack Russell Terrier, or any small terrier for that matter. I love the rear end and the retro spur wheel mounted on the boot, as well as the integrated boot release button in the rear light cluster. I am not so convinced by the steel wheels or plastic wheel covers though, nor by the lack of body color door mirrors and door handles. It lets down the looks for me a bit, but not to a massive extent. It still looks like it means business. What about the cabin? Open these surprisingly heavy doors and you're greeted with a very youthful and quirky cabin, much like the 6th generation Ford Fiesta that the EcoSport is based on. I really like the look of the cabin, even if its general design dates back all the way to 2008. It must be said that the EcoSport did receive a facelift in 2018 with an arguably much better built and modern interior. I really like the dual color plastics found around the dash, the doors, as well as the center console. It does a great job of lifting the cabin without being too jarring. However, there is no soft touch plastics anywhere in this cabin with the exception of the rim of the steering wheel. These air vents remind me of fighter jets in its angular and rather aggressive design, and the dashboard is adorned with slashes and cuts to keep things interesting. Boring, this car is not. The doors follow suit. To a large extent, you get the same dual color plastics you get on the dash, which I really like. And I love to see a properly padded door armrest covered in the same fabric you find on the seats. As standard on the Ambiente spec, you get electric front windows as well as electrically adjustable door mirrors. The switches on both give great feedback and good dampening. An interesting design choice has to do with the door pockets. They are really big, but more than half of it is covered by a piece of plastic, which makes accessing items that might have rolled to the back during driving really difficult. Another interesting choice is the door handle. It is unpainted hard plastic, which clashes a bit with the rest of the cabin. Thankfully, it does not feel flimsy. The doors are also very heavy, and I love the reassuring thud it awards me when I close it. The steering wheel is quite a reminder that you bought the entry-level EcoSport. With the exception of the blue Ford logo in the middle, the whole steering wheel is very plain and very black. There isn't any audio controls either. They try to make up for it for offering a steering wheel that is adjustable for rake as well as reach, which really helps you to get a comfortable driving position, especially considering that the driver's seat isn't adjustable for height. The dials are really attractive, if a bit small. The design is really simplistic and clear, and I love the blue needles. One dial I really do miss, however, is a temperature gauge, quite an important piece of information that we're denied. Another omission is that of a proper trip computer. With the exception of the instant fuel consumption, this might as well have been rolling digits from the 90s. The center console reminds me of a stormtrooper's helmet. All the buttons, of which there are many, are placed at an angle to form a V-shape, with the buttons that control the monocolor infotainment system being placed in between the two banks of shortcut buttons. Even though this is the entry-level Ambiente spec, I am rather disappointed by the lack of a USB port and Bluetooth audio. Thankfully, you do get an auxiliary input as well as a CD player for you retro fans. Also, the sound coming from the standard fit speakers is very impressive. The stereo unit is arranged to look like an arrow pointing down to the hazards button, which is very well placed indeed, and the door unlock lock switch. Pushing the latter, however, does result in a rather loud, hollow sound coming from the doors. Below this interesting stereo unit, you find a rather utilitarian-looking climate control panel, which is divided into 3 circles. It is ergonomically very well thought out and easy to read. It is rather plasticky in its operation, however, but considering this is a crossover, it doesn't really clash with the theme of the cabin too much. When it comes to storage, the EcoSport performs really well. You get a very big, if undampened, glove box, massive front door pockets, although to reiterate, it is rather difficult to access things that have slid to the back. Then you have a rubber padded panel in front of the gear lever where you could put your phone, but it will just slide about. Behind the gear lever, there is a rather narrow and deep compartment which is perfect for a wallet, and a smaller space where you can keep some coins. Next to the handbrake, there is 2 very deep cup holders, and behind the handbrake, there is a jumbo cup holder, but this is only a space where the armrest would have been on higher spec cars. All in all, more than enough space for all your odds and ends. Almost everybody will be more than happy in the back of the EcoSport. When it comes to getting comfortable, few cars in this price point can even come close to this Ford. There is a good amount of knee room and ample headroom. But this is only one part of the story. The front seats are raised slightly so you can slide your feet under them, really stretching out your legs. Then there is quite the Easter egg. The rear bench can recline slightly, almost as much as an economy seat in an airplane. It makes such a big difference. Then there is the fact that the rear seats are raised slightly above the front. Combine that with the low window line and children will love it. They get a great view out and it helps with car sickness. Storage solutions in the rear is rather depressing, however. These door pockets are only big enough for very small bottles. You only get one pocket behind the passenger seat and these small storage containers next to the seats themselves. I wouldn't call it practical back here. The boot is slightly smaller than average for its segment at 355 litres. It must be said though that it isn't small by any means. What I find really interesting is that the boot door opens like a regular door, not upwards like a conventional hatchback. This can create a problem when you want to unload the boot after parking your car in the garage. One design detail I really like is the boot switch that is integrated in the right-hand rear light cluster. It actually took me quite a while to find it for the first time. On that note, there isn't a boot release switch in the car nor on the key, so this hinders user friendliness just a bit. The seats fold almost completely flat in a 60-40 split. This makes way for a much bigger utility space. There is a rather large ridge to hinder through loading though. Thankfully, there are some neat touches in the boot, like 2 grocery hooks and 4 tethering hooks, which adds to the versatility of this car. All in all, this cabin feels really well thought out. I will almost call it premium. I say almost because there are 1 or 2 niggles that can still be ironed out. One thing that I find a bit bothersome is that the seat mechanisms are a bit too visible. Also, the lack of soft touch materials rob it of being a proper competitor to the Haval H2 or the Mazda CX-3. The EcoSport does counter, however, with much more versatility. Now, Fords have always been known to be drivers' cars. Does the EcoSport live up to this notion? Well, one thing is for certain. When it comes to the driving experience, the EcoSport is much more than the sum of its parts. I can tell that there are years of experience put into these components, even if the components consist of a humble, naturally aspirated 1.5 litre engine and a dated, if slick, 5-speed manual transmission. Driving the EcoSport around town is as easy as any B-segment hatchback. All the controls are nice and light, particularly the steering. The clutch's operation is really progressive and the brakes follow suit. On that subject, the brakes are really strong. It takes some getting used to at first, thank God I was wearing a seatbelt. After a while, however, it becomes almost a comfort knowing that the brakes has your back, especially considering it is fitted with ABS as well as electronic brake distribution. Thanks to the EcoSport's relatively small dimensions, excellent visibility all around, a turning circle that is really good for its segment, as well as rear park distance control, means navigating tight spaces is an absolute doddle. The engine also provides just enough shove to weave in and out of lanes during rush hour traffic. Out on the twisties, and I am pleasantly surprised by this car's competence. Sure, with 81 kilowatts, you're going to have to work the gearbox, but that just kind of adds to the experience. Then there is the amount of grip on offer and the lack of body roll when you throw this thing into the corners. And don't think that there is a trade-off of a very hard ride, because the suspension is very well dampened and doesn't crash easily over bumps. The only thing that I've noticed is that the steering is just a little bit too light, even if it is direct. For the most part, however, the EcoSport really does live up to Ford's mantra of being a driver-focused car. Out on the open road, and the experience remains good. I would have loved a bit more power, but changing down a cog or two is actually a treat in itself thanks to the mechanical feel of this gearbox. Wind and road noise is surprisingly low for a car at this price point. The cabin feels very well insulated from the outside world. Maybe this is a premium product. There are some other rivals to consider, however, when you're looking for a car in this segment. One of them is the Mazda CX-3. It is achingly beautiful inside and out, but it can't match the EcoSport for practicality and versatility. Then there is the Nissan Juke, a great option if you'd like to stand out from the crowd, for better or for worse. Another rival to consider is the Toyota CHR. You get those quirky looks with Toyota reliability. However, rear passengers won't like that choice too much, as rear headroom is rather limited and the cabin feels rather claustrophobic. I am truly impressed by this EcoSport. It feels as though Ford has put a lot of thought into the design of this car. It looks really good. It isn't too big, the interior is funky, it offers great practicality, and it has an excellent driving experience. Combine that with exceptional reliability, and you have a winner on your hands. Personally, I would opt for the Trend model for some extra goodies, but most people will be more than happy with their purchase. I truthfully understand now why South Africans are smitten with the Ford EcoSport. Well done, Ford. Thank you so much for watching another one of my reviews. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to my channel for more great content. I have loads more lined up for you guys. If you're interested in some behind the scenes footage as well as a peek into my personal life, be sure to follow my social media platforms, links in the description box below. I hope you guys have a fantastic day and I look forward to seeing you soon. Until next time, bye.